From lifting domestic doubles to crashing out of the Champions League against Arsenal. From being hailed as Ronaldo's successor to racking up more red cards than goals from free kicks. From bold declarations like, "I'll do it 10 times more," to doing absolutely nothing. Real Madrid's journey has been anything but predictable. When Real Madrid added Kylian Mbapp, a player many called the best in the world, to a squad that had already conquered both La Liga and the Champions League, the football world assumed Madrid would dominate for years to come. With Barcelona going through a rough patch at the time, it looked like Madrid's reign was inevitable. Yet here we are, witnessing the opposite. So how did a team filled with stars fall short of expectations? For those familiar with Real Madrid's history, this isn't entirely shocking. This current iteration of the Galacticos is facing problems eerily similar to the first and second versions that came before them. Let's rewind to the original Galactico era, between 2000 and 2006. Florentino Pérez won the club presidency with a bold promise to bring the world's biggest football stars to Madrid. And he did just that, starting with Luís Figo from fierce rivals Barcelona. It was a record-breaking deal and a massive statement. Then came Zidane from Juventus for another record fee of €75 million. With just 2 major signings, it still felt balanced. And it worked. Madrid won La Liga in 2001 and 2003, and the Champions League in 2002, with Zidane scoring that iconic volley in the final. But things started to spiral when Pérez couldn't resist adding even more superstar names. In 2003, he brought in David Beckham from Manchester United. A great player, but by then more of a global brand than a game-changing presence on the pitch. It didn't help that Madrid already had Figo playing in Beckham's favorite role on the right flank. Make sure to smash that like button, subscribe to The Athletic Journal, and hit the bell icon so you don't miss out on any deep dives, breakdowns, or football stories you won't hear anywhere else. Trust us, you'll want to stick around for this one. So now, 2 elite players were being forced into unfamiliar positions just to fit the branding vision. When Beckham played on the right, Figo was pushed to the left or central midfield, and vice versa. These moves started to disrupt the squad's balance. Even worse, Madrid let go of Claude Makélélé, one of the best defensive midfielders in the world, because Pérez didn't think he was worth a pay raise. He wasn't flashy, he didn't sell shirts, but he was the engine of the team. And letting him go was a massive mistake. Despite boasting one of the most talented squads in the world, Madrid failed to win any trophies for the next 3 seasons. Their chaotic imbalance gave rivals like Ronaldinho and Eto'o at Barcelona the perfect opportunity to shine. Speaking of Eto'o, here's a twist. Real Madrid actually owned 50% of his rights while he was at Mallorca. They had the first option to bring him back. But Pérez sold those rights in 2004, believing Raúl and Ronaldo Nazário were already the best strikers in Spain. Yet somehow, that same summer, he went out and signed Michael Owen. Again, classic Pérez. Big names over tactical sense. There were even rumors that managers were being pressured to start the biggest names regardless of form, purely for commercial reasons. And the irony? Samuel Eto'o would go on to lead Barcelona to multiple La Liga and Champions League titles, while Owen left Madrid after just 1 year, never making a real impact. When Beckham left for the MLS, it marked the symbolic end of the first Galacticos era, an ambitious but ultimately flawed project built more on marketing than football logic. Beckham was the last of the original Galacticos to leave Madrid. Figo had already departed for Inter Milan 2 seasons earlier. Zidane hung up his boots after the 2006 World Cup, and Ronaldo made a mid-season move to AC Milan just before Beckham's exit. When you look at it all together, it was a highly disappointing era, especially considering the sky-high expectations, the cash spent, and the superstar names involved. Fast forward to today, and you can start to see some of the same patterns re-emerging with the latest iteration of the Galacticos. Take the Mbapp signing. While it wasn't done purely for commercial gain like Beckham's, it still raised some eyebrows. Real Madrid already had Vini Jr., arguably the best left-winger in world football at the time. Sure, Mbappe at his best is on another level, but their natural positions and styles overlapped heavily. Early in the 2024-25 season, that awkward overlap became glaringly obvious. Every matchday graphic and heat map looked like Mbappe, Vini, and Rodrigo were just stepping on each other's toes on that left-hand side. It was chaos. Fortunately, as the season wore on, Mbappe gradually shifted into the number 9 role. And to be fair, even in a season where the team under-delivered, Mbappe was still a standout performer. He finished as Madrid's top scorer and ranked second in big chances created. But here's the issue. His personal brilliance came at the cost of team cohesion. The overall quality of Madrid's football dipped. Ask most Madridistas, and they'll tell you straight up. This team doesn't always play great football. But what they do have is the ability to dig deep, pull off miracle wins, and turn around games that look dead and buried. That's become part of their DNA. Still, during the 2023-24 campaign, when they won both La Liga and the Champions League, they were playing some of their best football in years. That 4-4-2 diamond system worked wonders. They were the highest scoring team in Spain, and at the same time, the most solid defensively. Jude Bellingham was thriving in that advanced midfield role, linking up beautifully with Vini, reminiscent of Benzema's connection with him in previous seasons. No surprise they had 2 players finish on the Ballon d'Or podium. But the moment Mbappe entered the picture, the synergy seemed to vanish. The team felt disjointed. Interestingly enough, there was a brief period when the team found its rhythm again, when Vini was suspended. In true Vini fashion, he lost his temper, picked up a red card, and then got into it with the referee, earning himself a suspension. You know it's bad when even Rudiger is the one trying to calm you down. With Vini out, Rodrigo moved to the left, Mbappe played centrally, and Brahim Diaz slotted in on the right. And suddenly, things clicked. Madrid thrashed Las Palmas 4-1 and smashed Valladolid with Mbappe grabbing a hat trick. Sure, those teams aren't exactly title contenders, but at least Madrid looked fluid. They looked like a team again. When Vini missed time with a muscle injury, they also picked up solid wins, 2-0 over Getafe and a dominant 3-0 against Girona, who have been no pushovers. Now maybe this was just a good run of form. After all, at the start of the season, Vini was actually the one carrying the team while Mbappe struggled with confidence. So it wasn't always Mbappe dragging things down. But when Vini came back from his ban, yeah, it was rough. He posted that he was going to do it 10 times more, and then did absolutely nothing. Newsflash, 10 times 0 is still 0. At one point, Vini had 0 successful dribbles across 2 consecutive matches. Madrid didn't just become dull in attack, they fell off defensively too. And it didn't help that their front 3 were barely pressing. Mbappe often looked completely uninterested off the ball, barely moving, let alone pressing defenders. And yes, we all know he's not a natural number 9, but that doesn't excuse the lack of effort. This is a guy in his physical prime, walking around the pitch, disengaged. Just look at the data from the Champions League. Distance covered per 90 minutes. Mbappe ranked near the bottom. And guess who else wasn't far behind? Vini. Mbappe's reluctance to make off-the-ball runs has created a ripple effect throughout the team, particularly on Jude Bellingham. Instead of operating primarily in his natural midfield role, Jude has had to cover for Mbappe's lack of movement, effectively doubling his workload. It's simply not viable to expect strikers should be handling. Out of everyone in this current Madrid setup, Bellingham probably has the most reason to feel frustrated. Not long ago, he was the golden boy. He was in every headline, scoring wonder goals almost weekly, and was being hailed by many as the best player on the planet. But since Donatello walked through the door, it's been a different story. Jude's had to do more with far less recognition. And here's the thing, those watching closely can still see that Bellingham's been excellent. But his stats dropped early in the season because Ancelotti pushed him deeper into midfield. Madrid initially went back to the traditional 4-3-3, asking Jude to help shoulder more of the defensive load. Eventually, they shifted to a 4-2-3-1 that gave Bellingham a role behind Mbappe, which suited him far better. But even in that system, when they didn't have the ball, he'd have to slide out wide, and Madrid would essentially become a 4-4-2. So in most matches, Jude was running himself ragged, constantly pressing, tracking back, and filling in the gaps left by the 2 forwards who spent more time strolling around than engaging. It's as if he's doing cardio for the whole team. But of course, Mbappe isn't the only issue at Madrid right now. There's another deeper structural problem, one that mirrors what happened during the second generation of the Galacticos. After suffering that brutal 6-2 defeat to Barcelona and falling 9 points short of the La Liga title, Florentino Pérez decided it was time to hit the reset button and build another super team. This second Galactico era had some domestic success. They won the league in 2008 and took home the Supercopa in early 2009, but their European record was shocking. For a club synonymous with Champions League dominance, their form in that competition was anything but elite. After getting dismantled by Liverpool, it marked their 5th straight exit from the round of 16. They hadn't even reached a Champions League quarterfinal since 2004. So, to course correct, Pérez brought in some serious firepower: Kaká, Benzema, Cristiano Ronaldo, and Xabi Alonso. Unlike the first Galactico era, this one had more balance across positions, not just attackers for the sake of headlines. Still, their first season together ended without silverware. They got destroyed 4-0 in the Copa del Rey and were knocked out again in the Champions League round of 16, this time by Lyon. That made it 6 straight years of failure on the European stage. It wasn't until Jose Mourinho arrived that things began to shift. Mourinho brought a new mentality, a hardened edge. But let's be honest, Madrid's real dominance in Europe didn't begin until they brought in Luka Modric in 2012, Gareth Bale in 2013, and Toni Kroos in 2014. From there, the floodgates opened. Between 2014 and 2018, Madrid were the team in Europe. And while Ronaldo's goals and Bale's moments of brilliance were critical, it was the midfield trio of Modric, Kroos, and Casemiro that held it all together. They brought control, discipline, and the ability to dictate the pace of any match. Let's not forget, Ronaldo was already scoring loads of goals before they arrived, and Madrid weren't winning. Even after he left, he kept banging in Champions League goals at Juventus, but the trophies didn't follow him. Meanwhile, Madrid went on to win 2 more Champions Leagues, and Modric and Kroos were still central to that. That's the real issue with the current version of the Galacticos. There's no replacement for Kroos. Sure, you can't exactly clone a player like that, but you can try to find someone with a similar profile. Madrid hasn't done that. Guys like Valverde, Camavinga, and even Bellingham, while talented, aren't players who can slow the game down, control the tempo, or consistently break lines with precise passing. Modric can still do that, but he's nearly 40. It's unrealistic to expect him to start every game and put in 90 minutes. Ironically, for a stretch of the season, Dani Ceballos was stepping up and doing that job well. During that run, Madrid looked more in control, more balanced. Surprise, surprise, when you have a midfielder capable of dictating play, the team functions better. But then Ceballos picked up an injury and Madrid were back to square one. And there's another player who could play that role, Arda Güler. Yet for some reason, Carlo just won't use him. It's probably down to seniority. Ancelotti likely doesn't want to bench one of the star names, and so Güler, despite his potential, gets little to no minutes. It's a situation eerily similar to the one under Carlos Queiroz during the first Galactico era, where coaching decisions were often overridden by commercial or political concerns. Even when Carlo did play Güler, he stuck him on the right wing, which is absolutely not his natural position. Güler doesn't have the speed or physicality to be a touchline winger for Real Madrid. He's a number 10, more like Mesut Ozil in his prime, which makes his decision to join Madrid a bit strange in hindsight. This is a club that historically doesn't use a true central attacking midfielder. Just ask James Rodriguez how that worked out. Now look, Carlo Ancelotti deserves credit for what he accomplished in 2024. He dealt with a mountain of injuries, didn't have a true striker for most of the campaign, and still brought home trophies. But this season, Madrid have more than enough firepower to be playing better football. Sure, the transfer strategy has been questionable, but some of Carlo's decisions, like endlessly launching crosses into the box against Arsenal with Endrick, a 5'6" teenager, as your striker, are hard to defend. His reluctance to rotate or give young talent consistent minutes is also Asensio's story. With Real Madrid was one fans loved. A youth product stepping into the first team, it was classic Madridista romance. But let's be honest, he only got that chance because Ancelotti had no other options. Injuries had wiped out the center-back depth, and Carlo's hand was forced. Under normal circumstances, Carlo probably wouldn't have given Asensio the nod. And that's the shame of it, because the kid actually turned out to be one of Madrid's more consistent performers this season. He didn't just look like he belonged, he looked like he could thrive. Meanwhile, Endrick, who Madrid are banking on for the future, had fewer La Liga minutes than Bernal at one point. Yes, that Bernal, the Barcelona youngster who tore his ACL right at the start of the season. That tells you all you need to know about Carlo's willingness to give young talent consistent playing time, using Valverde as a makeshift right back, offering both athleticism and composure. But instead, Ancelotti kept going back to Lucas Vázquez. Against Arsenal, despite all the firepower on the pitch, we were watching Lord Vázquez, of all people, repeatedly taking long shots from 30 yards like he was prime Gerrard. And this is part of the bigger issue with Carlo. Yes, he's been one of the most decorated managers in football. Yes, he's loved by his players. And yes, he knows how to manage egos like no one else. But if we're being brutally honest, there's a reason why someone who has coached elite teams for decades has so few league titles to show for it. He thrives in environments where he can empower superstars, where his man management can smooth over internal issues. But when his approach to free football doesn't click, the product on the field becomes stagnant. There's no plan B. And even when it does click, it's often not the most beautiful football, just effective football that leans on individual brilliance, which makes this current version of the Galacticos all the more disappointing. This third era was supposed to be terrifying. When Ronaldo, Kaká, and Benzema arrived in 2009, that was a rebuild, Madrid trying to catch up after Barcelona dominated Europe. Back then, the players they signed were either hitting their peaks or already on the decline. Beckham was past his United prime. Ronaldo Nazário was already battling injuries, but this new iteration, Mbapp joined a winning team. This wasn't a rebuild. This was an upgrade to a squad that had already won the full of players young enough to keep developing, but good enough to be dominating now. That's what made it different from 2003 and 2009, and yet the performances have been underwhelming. Whether it's the need for a new manager or simply better recruitment and squad balance, Madrid needs to figure it out, and fast. Because if there's one club that knows how to dismantle a Galacticos project, it's Barcelona. They've done it twice already. The original Galacticos were undone by Ronaldinho, Eto'o, and a young Xavi and Iniesta. That 2005-2006 era showed the world that you could beat money with structure and youth development. The second Galacticos? They ran into Messi, Xavi, and Iniesta again, this time with Pep Guardiola in charge and tiki-taka in full flow. Sure, Real Madrid dominated the Champions League from 2014 to 2018, but domestically, Barca had their number. Without those European triumphs, the second Galacticos might have been labeled a failure as well. And now, here we are again. Barcelona are using the exact same formula against the third generation. Smart signings like Lewandowski and Rafinha paired with a golden crop of youth players from La Masia, Lamine Yamal, Pau Cubarsí, and Marc Guiu Casadou. These kids aren't just getting chances, they're thriving. Their recent 4-0 win over Real Madrid in El Clásico wasn't just a fluke, it felt eerily similar to the humiliations of 2009 and 2011 under Pep. A reminder that while Madrid buys the stars, Barca builds the system. Now, to be fair, it's still early days. There's a lot of time for Madrid to figure this out. They've got the talent, they've got the resources, they've overcome worse transitions before, and we've seen these Galactico locker rooms filled with egos and expectations find a way to come together and win. But man, just imagine if this team had prime Modric instead of the 40-year-old version. Imagine what that guy could do in a midfield with Bellingham and Camavinga. So, while Real Madrid's current Galacticos might be stacked with talent, history has shown us that building a winning team takes more than just big names. It takes balance, structure, and trust in the right profiles, young or old. The potential is still there, but unless changes are made, tactically, structurally, or even managerially, we might be watching yet another star-studded Madrid era fall short of what it should be.